My sister's husband lost his mind when I revealed that I was in a romantic relationship with someone else. This is just a vent post, but I need to get this off my chest, and any advice would be appreciated. I'm Ashley, 17F, and I recently found myself in a situation weighing on me. My sister, Jess, 25F, has been married to her husband, Jake, 34M, for about 2 years. They've been together since she started college, and from everything I could see, they always seemed like the perfect couple. Whenever they came around, they were the epitome of a model relationship, and I never saw any red flags. To give a little background, my parents didn't exactly make the best choices in life, so Jess stepped in and practically raised me. I owe so much to her for that, and I've always been incredibly grateful. When she went to college, I made it a point to call her at least 3 times a week to check in, ask how she was doing, and just chat. In those conversations, she'd tell me about her schoolwork, her plans, and of course, she'd talk about Jake. She described him in such glowing terms, the flowers he'd get her, the beautiful dates they went on, and just how wonderfully he treated her. Honestly, it set a pretty high bar for my idea of love and relationships. Given that I grew up in a household where my parents' marriage should have ended a long time ago, I didn't have much of a reference for what a healthy relationship looked like, but Jess and Jake were the closest thing to that for me. When Jess introduced me to Jake, it was like I finally had an older brother. They eventually moved in together, got engaged, and now they're married. Fast forward to now, my parents ended up kicking me out because I refused to pay them rent. I've been working at a luxury horse ranch, and while the job comes with perks like free riding lessons and access to the horses, the pay isn't great. For what my parents were asking, I'd have to quit and find a better paying job or take on a second job, which I didn't want to do because I love my work too much. So Jess and Jake offered to let me stay with them. Jake works from home, and unless he's taking Jess out or going to the gym, he's usually at home. He makes good money from his family's company, though I'm not entirely sure what he does. Recently, Jess and Jake shared the exciting news that they're expecting, but given Jess's history with miscarriages, it's a very high-risk pregnancy. Naturally, we're all on high alert to make sure everything goes smoothly. When my parents kicked me out, they took away the car I'd been using to get to work and school. Losing that car sucked because I enjoyed the freedom it gave me, but I figured I'd manage. Jake insisted on driving me to school and work, which I was super grateful for. He'd drop me off at school in the morning, pick me up in the afternoon, and then take me to work. At the end of my shift, he'd be there waiting to take me home. It was such a big help, and I appreciated how much time he was willing to spend doing that for me. During these car rides, Jake and I would chat about everything Jess, the baby, and sometimes he'd tease me about my love life, asking if I had a crush or was dating anyone. He'd wink and say things like, "You're so beautiful. There's no way you're not hiding someone from me. You know you can tell me. I can keep a secret. The truth is, there was someone." Alex, 19M, whose family owned the ranch where I worked, but it was early and I didn't want to jinx anything, so I kept things vague whenever Jake asked. Eventually, Alex asked me out, and I was excited. He'd often help me out at the ranch, or we'd go riding together, and it was nice. One day, after my shift, I told Jake about it. His entire demeanor changed. He went cold. The warmth that I usually felt around him vanished, and he started grilling me with questions in a way that felt way too intense. I tried to brush it off as him being protective, but then he completely flipped out when I mentioned that Alex and I had been talking for about a month. He started accusing me of lying and hiding things from him, and I was so shocked and confused that I ended up crying. But what stuck with me most was when he said, "What about us?" I still don't understand what he meant by that, but it's been haunting me. And now, looking back, I'm starting to overthink everything since I moved in. There's a pool in the backyard, and sometimes I'd go out there to swim or tan. I've noticed that whenever I was out there, Jake would find an excuse to come outside too. Whether it was grilling, mowing the lawn, or just hanging around, I started to feel like I was being watched. A few times, he even jumped into the pool with me, but I thought nothing of it at the time. Now, I'm wondering if there was more to it. Then, there are the weird encounters in the hallway after I'd shower. Jake and Jess have their bathroom in the master bedroom, so I'd use the hallway one. But after my shower, while I was just in a towel, Jake would be standing there waiting to say goodnight. I always just shrugged it off as nothing, but now I'm not so sure. I haven't told Jess about any of this because she's going through so much with her pregnancy. It's taking a toll on her, and I don't want to add to her stress or risk anything happening to her or the baby. But I also can't stop wondering if I'm just overthinking everything. After reading a few comments on my original post, I realized that I need to start setting boundaries. As much as I don't want to believe that Jake would ever hurt me, his reaction to Alex and the things he said have left me feeling unsafe. I've already started looking into carpooling with friends and seeing if Alex can give me rides. If worst comes to worst, I'll find a job within walking distance. But for now, I'm trying to maintain a brotherly relationship with Jake while still protecting myself. Update. I just wanted to thank everyone who commented on my last post. After reading through your advice, I came to the hard realization that I'm no longer safe in this situation, and I need to make changes. Last night, I tried to talk to Jake, but he was still in a foul mood, so I went to my room. A few hours later, I felt like I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. I grabbed my stuff and walked to my smoke spot to clear my head. Not even 15 minutes later, I got a text from Jake asking, "Where are you?" And then my phone blew up with calls. I felt pure fear. I wanted nothing more than to be left alone. When I finally picked up, Jake unleashed a barrage of insults at me, calling me a spoiled princess and saying I deserved to be treated like the slut I am. He even demanded that I send him my location, which I refused to do. I told him to take a breath and think about what he was saying. I ended up calling Alex, who came to pick me up. I was shaking so badly, but I managed to explain everything to him. He calmed me down, and we talked things through. During all of this, Jake was still blowing up my phone. Eventually, I picked up a call from my sister's phone, knowing that it might be Jake on the other end. Sure enough, it was him, and he was yelling at me again. Alex grabbed the phone from me and told Jake to shut the hell up and leave me alone. Then he hung up. After that, Alex drove me to his parents' ranch, where they offered me a room in exchange for some extra work around the farm. I spent the night there feeling a mix of relief and fear about what had just happened. The next day, I called Jess, and thankfully she picked up. She had been crying and asked if I was okay. She told me that she had woken up to Jake's yelling the night before, but pretended to still be asleep. Jake had taken her phone off the charger and left the house to come look for me, all while still yelling into the phone. She was scared, but she didn't know what to do. When he came back, he blew up at her too, and started wrecking furniture before storming out again. She checked her call logs and saw all the calls to me. She told me that she had called a friend to pick her up because she was terrified of what Jake might do. Jess is now staying with our parents, who are letting her move back in rent-free to help with the baby. If this had been an option earlier, none of this might have happened. Jess and I went out to dinner, and we had a long cry together. She told me she's filing for divorce and has no intention of forgiving Jake after what happened. I'm just so thankful for everyone who commented on my original post. You might have saved me. I don't know what would have happened if I had been at the house that night, but I'm glad I didn't have to find out.